come in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is I think it's our third SOULFest book club. It's really taken off as part of the SOULFest community events, and I'm pretty excited about this one. Just want to give 1 or 2 minutes for people to find their way to their Zoom link, because I know it's always a thing. And say you're welcome to be on video or not. If you're comfortable, it's always nice to see people's faces, but I understand that sometimes that's uncomfortable. But we're going to have a really great event tonight. If you want to, you'll have a chance to ask our author some questions. So you might want to think about those now. Read the book. We have a couple more people coming in. And if you want to, you're welcome to use the chat to share where you're zooming in from. It's always cool to see where people are in our SOULFest community. It's certainly grown over the last year that we had SOULFest Global. And we had people zooming in from all over the world. The NYC, Southern California, Memphis. Awesome. I'm here in the Western Catskills. It's not a place I thought I was going to end up. Here I am in upstate New York. It's beautiful here. We have Virginia. Great. People zooming in from all over. Jersey. I'm from Jersey originally. Welcome, New Jersey. So again, as you settle in, of course, you're welcome to keep your video on or off, but if you're comfortable, it's always nice to see everyone's faces. Iowa, welcome. You're welcome to use the chat, share where you're zooming in from, and if you have some questions for our author, make sure you hold on to them, and we'll try to leave a good amount of time for questions. I'm sure there are many. So I'm going to go ahead and start now. My name is Lara Land. I'm one of the co-producers of SOULFest. SOULFest is a festival, yoga, wellness, meditation, health-related festival dedicated to celebrating diversity and wellness and to keeping wellness accessible and exciting. We're really for promoting lifting spirits and bringing people together through all types of wellness. So sometimes that means dance, moving our bodies in different ways. Sometimes it's chanting and singing. And I really felt that I wanted to have my dear old friend, Faye Wolf, on because I really have always seen this connection between decluttering and our mental health and wellness. So I see it as a very natural collaboration. And also Faye has been a longtime supporter of SOULFest, and you may have seen her excellent commercial video for her course and her book at our last SOULFest Global event. So welcome, Faye. I'm so excited that you're here, zooming in from the West Coast. Just give a little introduction. Faye is an artist. That's actually how we know each other. From our artistic background at BU. She's an author and a decluttering pro. 2006 and has since guided thousands of creative folks and everyone else toward less inner and outer clutter, more creativity and productivity, and maybe even a happier adulthood. Couldn't we all use some of that? Yes. Faye has a 1-minute tip video series with apartment therapy that's amazing, has been featured as an expert on OWN Network's Homemade Simple. Her book, New Order, a decluttering handbook for creative folks and everyone else, released by Valentine Random House in 2016 and has been celebrated in the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Fast Company, and Refinery 29, to just name a few. Faye was named official style maker by Better Homes and Gardens, appearing on the cover of their Style Maker issue. She delivered a keynote at Etsy's first ever sellers conference in New York City and has also spoken at the Soho House LA, Random House HQ, and the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals Conference, among others. In 2020, Faye launched her first online decluttering course. Congratulations. And it was based on her book, New Order, a decluttering course for creatives, free thinkers, and everyone else. And it allows students to instead learn through interactive video and content with others around the globe. So I think that's wonderful because we all learn different ways. And also one of the things I want to ask you is how things have evolved since the book came out, because I remember being at one of your book launch events in Brooklyn, and
Right.
times have changed. So I'm really curious how that's evolving. I also want to mention you as an artist. You dig through your own clutter to release songs and creative projects out into the world. Famous for making people cry. I think there's a shirt, Faye Wolf Made Me Cry. Her sad tunes available on iTunes and Spotify have been heard on a long list of TV shows, including Grey's Anatomy and Pretty Little Liars. She's acted on stages across the United States and in 2 shows like Two Broke Girls and Bones. Wolf is a Golden Circle member of NAPO, lives in Los Angeles, and you can follow her on her Instagram. We're going to share that all in the chat. Welcome, Faye. Wow, what a bio.
Thank you.
How much you've accomplished.
My goodness, hearing my bio, I'm like, okay, that's like the confidence I needed for like my next month, that's actually things that I've accomplished. Thank you.
Wow, you have done a lot. You have done a lot, and
I appreciate that.
It's really, really impressive. And I guess I wanted to start by asking you a little bit about that. Like, how do you balance your creative dreams with also your work as a pro organizer, writer, etc.?
Well, I think that it's probably best and most truthful to just like kind of pop that bubble a little bit, especially after like hearing that bio, and just let you all know that it sure is challenging, and I'm sure not doing it all the time, and I'm always like struggling, and I'm currently in like you know, a drought of my creative practice, and really trying to find my way back, or I should say find my way forward to a new chapter with that. So I just want to be like super honest that it's just like a really constant road of trying to find time and trying to balance all these things, and saying no to some things in terms of like, oh, well, should I follow this path that's one of these many paths that I do, and should I try to develop that more, or am I neglecting this other part of my life? So the answer is I don't quite have an answer, although I do practice the things that I preach in terms of the attempts to have a task list that works for me, create literal space for my creativity, so that when I am inspired, when I do make time for it, it's the easiest thing in the world to access those things. Yeah, that's sort of the beginning of it, and we can get into little details of that. But I would say that it's tough, but what makes it a lot easier is to have a lot of these things organized in a way that makes it easier.
Yeah, so like setting yourself up for when that moment arrives, it's all
Yes,
place, it sounds like.
exactly. I want people to have, literal access to their creativity. That's a huge one. And we still have to get out of our own way in so many places, but you don't want to have to get out of your own way emotionally and then also be like, where is my guitar? Or where are the blank easels? Or where is the sugar so I can bake this cake that I need to, that'll make me feel good to bake. You get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes that's challenging, right? Because if that's a thing that you don't pick up that much, somehow it gets buried.
Yes. It gets buried in all the ways. So, if all else fails, you at least just want to be able to find things as soon as possible and to just know in your mind's eye where something is, know what you have to do and have it written on some sort of list that you can trust, so that you're not, don't so you don't have that added stuff because you're always going to have like the inner clutter stuff, right? You're always going to be like, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people are probably going to be like, well, I'm not good enough, myself included. And, I'm not supposed to be doing this thing, or I'm supposed to do this other thing, or I have responsibilities that are taking me away from this other thing. So it's like, we can do our best to, work through that stuff. Um, but what we have a lot more control over is our actual stuff, is deciding where our stuff goes. Like, that stuff, you can make those decisions. You can decide on homes for things. You can, label the boxes, just a simple thing like, like taking out a post-it. Doesn't have to be like a fancy label maker. Like, take out a post-it, take out a Sharpie and just write what's inside of the box. Because you're gonna forget. And then you're not gonna have it, at your fingertips. So little things like that. Doesn't have to be some big, operation where you're trying to make things look perfect.
I love that because like that's been the thing that I've had to teach myself over the last couple years is you're gonna forget. To stop like deluding myself that I'm going to remember. like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like now I really have it, yeah, into my mind. Like you're gonna forget. like so just make it
Right.
easy. Set that reminder.
I
I
don't
have
remember.
an added challenge now, Faye. Since I have you first, I am gonna share. Maybe some people have this too. I have a little one in the house. So even if I
Mhm.
put something in a box and it's labeled, it may not stay
It
there.
may travel.
And I also have another issue with having a young one in the house. It's an issue that I had before. Maybe other people can relate to, but it has definitely been exacerbated by having a kid. It's not kid specific, but um, yeah, it's definitely more so since having a child. Is that I seem to be a kind of person that people like to give a lot of things to.
Mhm.
I seem to be a magnet for stuff. I don't know if anyone else can relate. When you have a kid, for sure, like the grandparents are always bringing stuff over.
Yep.
Being that Jan and I host this wellness festival, we're constantly getting. You had ever helped someone with that about how to talk to people about maybe not sending as much stuff or what to do with those things that like keep coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. Very common. And, you are loved and supported, and this is how people show love. And so, we can first be grateful that love is in our life, and also, remove any guilt, which is hard to do, but to try and just, sort of say to yourself, well, this is my space. I am in control of this space. I would like to be in control of this space and how it makes me feel. Um, and then absolutely start having conversations with people. I know that can be challenging depending on the type of relationship you have with those people. Sometimes people are super understanding, and it's like the other person probably has like a thing where, they kind of need to feel that if they don't give a gift, like they haven't done enough, or they don't matter to you, or they haven't shown you the love, right? So again, depending on that relationship with them, sometimes you can have that sort of direct conversation and just be like, I love you. I know you love me. No more gifts, certainly when there are specific holidays or birthdays, you can make sort of a blanket statement in terms of something you might send out and just be like, this is what we're doing this year, or for this birthday or whatever. We've decided, we're going to give our child a couple of gifts, and that's our limit. We want to teach them good habits or whatever it is. And you can also do an alternate, like if people want to spend money, maybe you decide on a charity that you're like in lieu of, whatever, and you give people that information. People love to just show in whatever way makes you happy. And it's also sort of a practice, like a repetition with people. It might not work on the first time. And then it's just also, sort of the last part of it is that you might get it anyway and you have it in your house, and then you just have to make a decision and you have to pass it along and have that become a practice where you found the places that you can pass things along, whether it's just like a regular donation center, or again, like a certain, nonprofit or something that where other kids can take the stuff, or adult gifts too, I'm sure, and just sort of make the effort, you know what I mean? Like as opposed to it like happening to you, like become an active part. This is happening to us. This is how we're going to handle it. We're going to pass along this way. Just like decide on the chain, make those choices. Hope that helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I love how it's just like taking control of your life, and it's all about communication and relationships. And
Yes.
yeah, I think I need to be more direct. I'm trying, like, I'm not giving gifts, so you can realize that that's not something I want to do.
Yes.
Like, yeah, we're
And
not giving.
a card. Cards are great. People really appreciate paper cards because they're so, rare these days. Cards or flowers, things like that. And I'm
Absolutely.
just seeing in the chat, yes, I respectfully let people know that I have no more space for things in my life, says organized by Kendra. Exactly. And we've got some pro label maker people. Yes, I do, of course, sure, I have a label maker. They're amazing, but also I don't want people to think they have to run to the store and get them. They can use what they have as well.
I love that. That's so important, because I think sometimes it's easy to, like, you get excited, you go out and you buy everything.
Mhm.
That's actually not what needs to happen. Like,
No,
for
it's not.
small steps, maybe with what you already have, or else you're actually creating more clutter.
Exactly. The first page in the book says your first step is not to go to the store to buy organizing products, because that's what, we're all trained to do. Buy more stuff.
We are trained. We're trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even in our letting go of stuff, we're trained to buy more stuff to
It's
let go
crazy.
of.
It's crazy.
Yana wrote, it seems like everyone was organizing during the pandemic. I know a lot of people moved during the pandemic, and you thought maybe you would share some tips about moving into a new space. So I'd love to open it up for that. And then
Absolutely. Perfect. Yes. So as you can see, these are paint samples. This is not the artwork on my wall. So you're catching me mid-choice. We actually painted on my Zoom calls. I've actually been like playing a game with like pick the one that I chose. And today we painted one wall, but the other three have to go. We were like, we're just gonna do one. And then we were like, we don't want to do this anymore. But anyway, talk about adding more than that. It's I'm so incredibly grateful that we've been able to move into a larger space. My fiance and I was living in an amazingly beautiful 1 bedroom sort of treehouse-esque place next to some friends of mine for about a decade, and it was glorious. And my fiance moved in there about 4 years ago, and it was great for a while. And I wrote a newsletter to my newsletter subscribers saying how I had like so much anxiety about moving into a bigger space, and so much came up for me, so much inner clutter about like not only like am I allowed to like have a bigger home? But also this weird stuff came up where I was like, well, I'm an organizer. I should be able to make a small space work, and all this just intense inner clutter that comes up. And really at the end of the day, like most of my inner clutter and most of a lot of people I know, it all came down to worthiness and just fear and just like stuff like that. So anyway, about 2 months ago, we moved into a beautiful house that we're renting near a mountain and has a little cabin in the back that we're hopefully going to turn into a music studio. But tips wise, I have learned yet again that you can plan and prep and make lists and think things are going to be easier. And the prepping and the planning does make it easier. And yet it is still always going to take more time than you think to pack up a house and move, or at least to pack up a house in some sort of organized fashion. I think just some of the quick tips as far as moving is that labeling boxes very specifically is so important. If you label a box kitchen and there are 12 kitchen boxes and you need to fry an egg, how are you going to fry that egg? You know what I'm saying? So I just really want to always say, please label your boxes as specifically as possible. Actually write everything that's in them. The extra 10 seconds it takes to do that is going to save you hours on the other side. Also try to do like a long side and a short side of the box, maybe the top two, just so any way they're sort of facing or have to be packed somewhere, that there's always like a label side facing out to you, because it's very normal that there might be stacks of boxes staring at you for several weeks, maybe months. And I would just say, don't feel like you have to set things up. I know someone who's an interior designer and they're just like a very fast personality and they just like get things done. And literally within a week, the house is designed and done and everything is hung up. And I have come to accept that I'm just like kind of the opposite of that. And I kind of just need to feel out a space for a while. And sometimes it'll be a year before I do things, or I'll do something and I'll change it. And that's fine too, which is really just the lesson that different things work for different people. Whatever works for you. This applies to all of life, but like, all of organizing. There's no right way to do it. There's no right product that's the perfect product that's going to solve all your problems. And also, this sort of segues into just how I believe that decluttering itself is a creative practice. When I talk about creativity in my work, it's both in terms of decluttering's applications toward creativity and allowing yourself to be more creative, but it's also about a feeling that decluttering is not this rigid thing, but it can be an actual creative act in itself, where you try things and you see if it works and it makes you feel a certain way, and then you can take it apart and do it again another way. The end of that sentence.
I love that. Like, you don't have to think that because you try to organize something one way, it has to stay like that.
Right.
Sometimes that traps me, Faye, because I'm like, I don't know. I try so hard, but then my imagining of how the things will fit doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I'll end up with one other thing. So
Okay, great.
yeah, that's
And you just got to try and see what sticks. And
yeah.
then sometimes like, yeah, one thing won't fit. And I also always say like, if you feel like there are two places where you would look for something, like, yes, I want all the things that are the same thing together, sure. But if in your brain you're like, well, there's only two places that could be, great. You know, more than two, and you're sort of like, it's a lot. But if you're like, it's either there or there, fine.
You know what? You told me that tip, and that
Really?
has always stuck with me.
Oh,
I
I'm
feel
so
like
glad.
that has always stuck with me, that you said there could be two places for a thing. And that just gives you, I know you shared with me, and I want to open up to the group, but like, getting too rigid about organizing. It's the thing that I say in my mind is like, there could be two places for this one thing, no
I'm,
more.
I'm so glad. No worries.
But it gives a little space, just a little
Yeah.
space.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so
So
glad.
I know I could take up all FaceTime asking her questions, but I'm sure that that there are so many here in the group. Um,
Oh, you just muted yourself.
yeah, that was dumb. I want to open it up to the group. What I wanted to do was point you down toward the reactions. If you want to do a virtual hand lifting up, or if you want to come on your mic, that's okay as well.
And I'm seeing in the chat too, Almitria gave a great response to Kathy's question. The Buy Nothing groups are amazing. I'm in one here. Do you want me to read Kathy's question as well, or do you?
Sure.
And then we'll open up. Okay. So Kathy had asked, how about good ways to turn down women who insist on giving you their old clothes that no longer fit them? It's been awkward to have some relatives, coworkers, and even students try to sell me on their gifts. And Almitria responded, do you have a Buy Nothing group in your city? Again, those are great. Women's shelters or a Dress for Success group. Maybe suggest to them to offer their donations there. Yes, that is absolutely what I would say. Again, depending on your relationship with the specific person, it's awkward, but you can even like blame, say you went to this Zoom, you went to this book club and an organizer told you, blame it on me, that, it's time to sort of stop accepting gifts because your closet is full or something like that. But I suggest all of those things. The Buy Nothing groups, if you're on Facebook, they usually have a Facebook group by location. So you just join the location nearest you. And of course, if you just have a regular donation center, but obviously you kind of want to cut it off at the pass and like not even accept it. So I understand. But if the conversations are still awkward and you don't want to deal, then, I don't want that to take up your time, but if that's easier for you to just take it and then donate it yourself, then yes.
Yeah, it's like another step and another thing.
Yeah.
It's like putting your gift on someone that doesn't want it,
Right.
and then they have to.
Right.
I know that one.
You say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to pass this time. My closet's full. And
Yeah, practicing your response in advance.
yes.
Like saying it not just in your mind, but saying it out loud, because sometimes we have the greatest response in our mind, but it doesn't come out in our words.
Exactly.
And like you said, after a couple times, people will get it, and it will become a new pattern in your relationship.
Amen.
Oh, I see another question in the chat.
Since I started working from home, my office is the one space that is always neat. Since I can't work in a cluttered space, all the other rooms are a mess. Yes, I can understand that. Well, first of all, I'm glad you have the decluttered office. And if the question is how to, how do you declutter the other spaces as well, then slowly with a system in place. And of course, we can talk about first steps for that. Kathy says, to a few students, I recommended they donate and did let them know any cash tip would go to my dental fund. That's amazing. 2 got it, while 1 said I was the only person who could fit in her old clothes. Well, again, that's a tough one if she's sort of like making you feel. It's so hard because people feel like they can't let go unless they know where the thing is going to end up. And unfortunately, that's their stuff to work through, and you shouldn't have to, work through it with them. Although, I mean, again, depending on the relationship, you might be bold enough to say, like, I know it feels like you want this to go to a good home, but I'm sure, someone will. Just because she doesn't know the person doesn't mean that they're not out there who it can fit. You're so welcome.
I have a question. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where I'm moving currently, and I feel like we haven't been here very long, maybe 2 years, but now I don't want to bring stuff that I don't need into the new space, because I feel like I kind of did that. I didn't just cut the cord and get rid of stuff. And what is your advice on that whole process? Because I have another month or 2 before I leave this space.
Yeah, that was my first question, is how long do you have? Because that is a major factor. I didn't have as long as I wanted. I had about a tight month where I was, working full time. And so I did have to bring some stuff into this house that I really, really wanted to go through first. And it's one of those, just like, and the good news is there was like room to put it in the garage, very well labeled. And I'm like, well, at least it's organized, at least I know exactly what's in there. So if you're dealing with unmarked boxes, you can make it a little better by knowing exactly what's in there. That might help you later if you don't have the time. But if you have the time, if you do have the 2 months, then I would definitely be making a master list. For all moves, I would be making a master list. We had a master list that had every sort of major category, and then I split it up with who was starting with what area and then what areas we were doing together. I don't know if you're with other folks in the house, but that list was invaluable. And it's like so simple, and there's no like trick to it. It's just like books off of the bookshelf, it's master closet, things like that. And, then sort of deciding when you're going to group things together. And then on that master list, you would also add those areas or categories of things that are the items that you really, those boxes or however form they take, that you really don't want to be bringing into the new space. And, try to be plotting it out. If you want to go even further in terms of the task management and plotting it out on your calendar in terms of what days you actually think that you're going to be packing and decluttering, that is really, really great. And like, being pretty conservative about it in terms of what you think you can get done in a day. And then it's kind of like working backwards as well from the date you really have to be done. That was super, super helpful for us. And you might do something where it's like, okay, I'm going to do 3 areas, or let's make it even smaller, like 2 areas this week that I no matter what, like, has to get packed, right? And then like the third thing, if I get to it, is like decluttering this area of stuff that I don't want to be bringing, you know? Now I will say there might be a differentiation here, because some of the stuff that I wanted to not bring in the new house was kind of already contained. So is some of the stuff you're talking about like just part of your normal stuff? Like, yes.
Yeah, that's the major one.
Okay, that's the major one. So I want you to start with this area, because we will otherwise we'll all just, procrastinate and leave it till the last week, right? I actually did that with my kitchen. I procrastinated on my kitchen and I paid the price for that, because it was it was the hardest for me. So I would definitely start by, basically you're just going to do a decluttering session, a decluttering / packing session, where you're going to be taking stuff out of your closet anyway. And instead of just having the moving box open and ready, or however, the hanging thing, or however you're taking clothes, you're just also definitely having the donate bin right there with you. And then you're also, if you need it, which is totally fine, having a maybe bin. I'm all about that. That is totally fine, because it's going to get you through the process quicker. So that you're not like, oh, I have to make the decision right now. You can put it there. Or if it's something, with clothes, there can be even more categories. Like sometimes there's a try on pile, sometimes there's an alterations pile. It can be all these things. Make as many piles with labels, with a little label, that make you feel comfortable. If it starts to feel overwhelming to have too many categories, cull it down. But obviously we want the donate category to be the biggest. But if those other things are going to help you just move through it quicker, then you can have those as well.
That was so helpful. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. Good. You're so welcome. Okay. Let's see. There's some other stuff in the chat. Do I have plans to write another book? No, I don't. I don't. This book was sort of the culmination of the kind of major principles from the sort of decade before writing it, that from working with clients. And I felt like I covered my bases. Obviously, like I'm always learning new things and have so much more to learn, and love to share that when I do. But I'm happy with this. And I think if something comes to me, maybe yes, but I think my next order of business creatively is probably another album. Too many things going through my brain. Karen says, also, it's my opinion that if you are a regifter yourself, the kind thing to do is to ask people if they want something you have to give away to find out if they want it. Totally. If you can't find a recipient, even your children or their family members, then it's time for you to make the decisions about alternative ways of getting it out of your space. It's really not fair to push your clutter onto others. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. Fully agree. Yes.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I have many things. I'll jump in. I will jump in as people think of theirs, unless someone wants to. I'll give you guys a minute to reformulate. I feel like I remember in the book that you talked about digital clutter, but I do feel like that's something that's intensified and changed since the book came out. Maybe there are definitely new apps and new ways of storing your clutter. I know my husband is doing the second brain course, and I don't know if you're familiar with that. Santiago. It's about organizing your thoughts and everything.
Right. Writing it down. See, more to learn.
Evernote, and there's so many different kinds of apps now, even since that one. I wondered if you had new tools you're using or new thoughts on digital clutter that you wanted to share with the group.
Yes. Well, so many apps have died since publishing the book, and I knew that that was going to happen. And so I even put in the book, like, check my website for app updates. And you can go to this page on my website and it's like, okay, now this is replaced by this. And now I use this for this. So I will say that I'm looking at my phone to sort of let you know what my major ones are. Oh, and it's actually, if you go to the neworderlove.com website is the website. Thank you so much for posting my other websites. You have a clutter of websites. But if you go to the book page at neworderlove.com, then there's like, you can scroll down and there'll be a app update section, which probably needs more updates. So I will say my main, like, I used to use an app for email called Mailbox. And the reason I used it is because it had this snooze function. And then it either got bought by Google or someone else or Dropbox, or somebody bought it or killed it or whatever. But then Gmail, the regular Gmail app, started doing the snooze function, which is count can stay low and not overwhelm me, is because I will use the snooze function to send emails away and have them come back at a later date. That is like everything to me. I use Evernote pretty religiously, as well as my digital filing cabinet. So it really truly is everything that I used to store or would make a note about that I would have in a physical file cabinet is now stored in Evernote. Everything from, my auto insurance policy to notes about, my mom's doctors and things like that. Well, actually that's in 1Password, which I'll get to, but just like little lyrics, music lyrics that I'm working on that I like come up with on the go, and I don't have like a, paper notebook with me, things like that. And then the other app that I use every day is 1Password, which has all of my passwords for everything. They're all super hard to crack and long and impossible to memorize, because that's how strong they are. And the only, if you're not familiar with 1Password, there's also LastPass, some other companies. You only have to remember one password. That's why it's called that. You remember that one major password, and then it unlocks all these things, and it integrates with a lot of other apps. So when you're on your phone, you might, go into something and then it'll prompt you to unlock your 1Password and be able to log in for you. So what I say for people with the whole password thing, if you're still using, the name of your first pet and like the year you met your partner or whatever, like plus an exclamation point, please stop. But if that feels overwhelming to change all 500 of your passwords, just start with the ones where your life is going to be a little bit ruined if it gets hacked. So that's your email, your credit cards, your bank accounts, maybe your Amazon login, if you're on Amazon all the time, things like that, things that you use every day. And then for all the other websites that you have a million logins to, then just change those as you go, So that's another one I'm using all the time. And then I'll just tell is YNAB, which is called You Need a Budget, which is a little offshoot of organization, but in terms of organizing your money, it's single-handedly completely like changed my financial life. I can't even tell you, like, look into it. It's worth the money that it costs per year. It's very hard to learn how to use, and it took me a really long time. But then once you learn how to use it, it is a complete game changer and keeps me on track with being able to budget. And then the last one is I use an app called Tick Tick, which is a to-do list app. There are many out there. A lot of them are great. If you're an iPhone user, the built-in reminders is a great one. But if you are trying to keep track of a digital to-do list of any kind, and you're willing to go digital or you're already digital, paper to-do list is fine as well, as long as it's in one place. But Tick Tick just happens to be the one that I like and use. Again, reminders is great. There's so many out there. I just highly recommend using an app that's built for that, as opposed to using like a notes app or something where it just doesn't have the functionality that could help you in so many more ways. Yes. I could go on and on, but those are the major ones I use.
That's super helpful. That's a lot of resources. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Definitely need to organize my passwords.
And it feels overwhelming, you know, but it's just like when you go to 1password.com, again, like it's, you know, it's an expense, but it's just, for me, it's worth the peace of mind. And it's, I feel like it's kind of just like the price of being like a digital citizen these days. And once you actually just go to the website and like, they have a video to show you how to do, you know, they make it really easy for you to make it happen.
I can't remember if it's in the book, Faye, but what's your advice for how, like, for that maybe pile, and how long you haven't looked at or used something before it's time to say you'll never use it again?
Right. Well, first of all, for things like a maybe pile or things that you've gone through that you're like, I'm really going to try this time, or I'm really going to return this thing to this person this time, they're actually going to get it, or, you know, whatever it is. I really suggest that. Really important. Usually 30 days is like the max. I would have a client have a deadline for something like that, no matter what it is. The shorter, the better, obviously. And just sort of making a commitment to yourself that if you didn't do it after 30 days, you're still a wonderful person. And like, it's time to get rid of the thing. As far as like, you know, I don't have a hard and fast, you know, rule. Obviously, there's a rule of like, if you haven't used it in a year, except if it's like a holiday item or something like that, you can use that rule if that's helpful to you. But I also just want to bring in like emotion to it and how an item really makes you feel. And, you know, that's where Marie Kondo's principle of like joy, like really makes a lot of sense. And it's just kind of like with clothes, for instance, it's like, put it on, look in the mirror. How do you feel? And it doesn't matter if it's like, oh, well, you know, this is what's in fashion right now. This is what's everyone's wearing. It's just like, how does it make you feel? Like, we all have different body types. Maybe it's like not the type of thing that's meant for your body type, and that's fine, and something else is. So I just want that to always sort of be in your list of criteria. And I remember I do have like a list in the book, where you can kind of go through, here it is. It's like, would you miss it if it were gone? Like, how many things are not in your life anymore where you're like, oh yeah, I used to have that shirt that like, I haven't thought about it at all, you know? Like, would you actually miss this thing if it were gone? I won't read all of it, but, you know, is it ripped or broken, and are you actually going to fix it? And then again, like more inner clutter comes in, like, oh, well, I should fix it. I'm such a failure, like, because I'm not actually gonna fix it. It's just like, no. Are you gonna fix it or are you not gonna fix it? No? Okay, just get rid of it. It's fine. Buy a new one if you want it. If you want it, obviously then money comes into it. Well, I can't afford a new, it's like, okay, well then fix it. Just like, just make a decision and give yourself a deadline, and see how you feel.
I think, and I again, I kind of guess I'm not alone, that sometimes we think, our body will change to go back to fitting in that or looking right in that. And on the other end, like also about, well, like fashion. So you're like, this might, in another couple of years, this might work again.
Let me tell you, I got rid of a skirt that I loved like a year and a half ago, after I had like gained some weight, and I was like, this is just, I was like, I think this is just how I'm gonna be now. And I was like, I accepted it, and I was like, I'm gonna get rid of this skirt. And then my body would fit it again, and I'm like, I can't believe I got rid of that skirt. And you know what? I survived. Like, it's like, it's just a skirt. And that's where we just have to like disassociate, and right, and just like really know that like that skirt has nothing to do with my worthiness and my time on this planet, or it did, and like that time is past. And it's okay. Obviously that one does also have a bigger financial component, because, and obviously, of course, this is something I've talked with many clients in the past. And if you are in a place where you feel like, well, my weight really may change again, and I really don't want to put out another however many $100s for a new wardrobe, keep it. Don't worry about it. And, the thing is, we usually have, like, everyone's wardrobe has more in it than they actually need. So you can still thin it out and still have enough for 2 sizes of a wardrobe. And then the other thing is, like, just make it a little bit more organized. Like, if it's also staring you in the face and you don't fit it, but it's like the 3rd hanger you see every day, get it out of there. You're not that weight right now, okay? Put it in a clear bin or whatever, with a label up on a shelf somewhere, with the size that it is on it. Love yourself, move on. And again, even with the different sizes, you still have to be like, how do I feel? Like, when this is on my body, how do I feel in this thing? And you might say to yourself, you know what, when I'm that size again, like, I want clothes that make me feel a different way anyway. So it's these small little changes. It's not all or nothing.
Yeah, so true. I want to open it up for, there's someone in the chat.
Yes. Yes, if you have stuff you think you can sell, how long should you wait before getting rid of it if it does not get picked up? Yes. So again, well, if it doesn't get picked up, so if you're selling it, I mean, there's different ways to sell things, right? So sometimes you can like send stuff away to sell, or you can try to do it locally. I'm only for selling when you really think you're gonna get an amount that's truly like worth your time, and if you feel like it's also like really gonna get the amount that you think it's worth, because we have so much emotion tied to these things that we love. So if that's something, pardon me, declining that. If you're gonna go ahead and sell it because you really think it's gonna get sold, then go ahead and do it. And yes, again, just give yourself a time limit of how long you're gonna keep it in your house. depending on the thing, it might be like, well, 30 days isn't enough. So if it needs to be 60 days for you, that's fine. But then I want that 60-day mark like written in your calendar with the plan of dropping it off at the Goodwill or whatever the next day after that. And again, just like that value of like what someone's really going to pay. And I also suggest, like, one time when we were coming to the East Coast for a couple months, we sold a bunch of stuff and we priced everything to sell. So it was all like, less than what we could have gotten if we waited a little longer and like put a little bit more work to it. But we were just like, you know what, we want some fast cash. So we like underpriced things if you really, need that extra cash, plus the deadline. Is OfferUp or Craigslist good sources? Just today, I purchased a piano from OfferUp. Yes, I got a inexpensive piano that included delivery. And we were like, just get it. We were like, get it. So yeah, OfferUp is actually something I just started using very recently, and have had a couple of good experiences with it. As always, and as with Craigslist, I'm the most like nervous about people, doing bad things than anyone. So I'm always very wary. And of course, you always have to just be super careful. But I found that for the most part, people are just, normal people. And I would say absolutely, OfferUp and Craigslist are good sources. If you're a Facebook person, Facebook Marketplace seems to be a very hot place to buy and sell. Okay, Kathy says, I've done well holding on to some clothing through the decades because they fit well. When the pandemic shutdown began, I sold a number of vintage pieces, netting profit. Great. Coincidentally, one of my private students informed me that a scarf I was wearing to protect my arthritic neck was a collectible. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So something that you already had. Well, that's great to learn. Gives it sort of that like extra flair of knowing that. That's great. And I'm glad you did get a profit and you followed through with it's all about the follow through, it's all about just like taking action and completing the task. Sometimes even if you just get $10 for something, but it happened in 3 days and you've completed the task, and then you have less stuff. It's like, that's such a win. And of course, dropping things off and getting no money for them is also a win. But I know how it can have that extra nice feeling when you do sell something. So that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Awesome. Well, we're hitting the end of our hour here. You're getting thank you in the chat from Ashley. She'll be picking up the book. I think there's one more. You have time to do one more question?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's take this one more from the.
Okay, absolutely. We'll take the one more. How to make a creative space workable when you have other parts of your household within the space you're trying to use. It is difficult to answer. I mean, yes and no. So, the principles in some ways can work for everyone. And then of course you have your own individual space, you have your own individual things that you need to store in your space, people you might share your space with, things like that. So I would say that a creative space is possible in most spaces. When I lived in a studio apartment before my last place, that's when I started writing songs. And the only reason I did that is because I turned a closet into a room where the piano was. So I, decluttered all this stuff out of this closet. And most people wouldn't think to have it as covered up on the shelves in there, but I like fit this keyboard in there and I would like sneak in there and started writing songs. And so that was a huge, huge like surprise, obviously like creatively, but also that was possible. And I like put a little laptop on a little stool that fit like right in the corner. And it was like totally awkward and it totally worked. So I would say, if it's a really small space, closets or half closets are great for that. I have a client who long ago used half of a closet as a voiceover booth to record her voiceover auditions. She's now like one of the biggest voiceover people in LA and like has a proper one, but like that was like how she did her creative thing. If you want to write, Lainey, like what your creative practice is, writing or painting or music or cooking, I would love to know that. But it's about obviously like decluttering, but just like sort of making choices and trying something and seeing if it works. And then if it doesn't, trying something else. Mixed media and sewing. Okay, so that involves stuff, right? So it can be a little bit more challenging than being a writer or just playing one instrument or something like that. So I would say in terms of the storage of stuff like that, because I know that can be challenging, it might be, as much as I want you to have access to your tools and materials, it also might be in your space that you configure something where your materials might need to be stored separately from where you do your work. And like that can be okay. You can either have a couple things there, or it's the kind of thing where the real space you might need to find is the storage of those things. I'm not sure. And then you create that as an accessible area to grab things from. And then maybe you're able to then do the actual practice like out somewhere else. Obviously, if it's sewing, there might be a sewing machine. I don't know if it's more by hand or more of a sewing machine. But Lara and I actually have a friend from college who is a sewer, Abby, and I don't know if she's moved it now, but on her Instagram, I've seen that like she just a corner of the room that you wouldn't even think to put something, she has her sewing machine. So it's just one of those things where sometimes it's also helpful if you, because we're so used to our space that we might not see things. And that's happened to me too. And I do this for a living. So someone's come over and been like, why is your pantry there? So it might just be sort of a new set of eyes. And the last thing I'll say, and I hope some of this is helping, is that walls and shelves are so helpful. So if you've got blank walls out there, I want you to put up shelving, or I want you to get some sort of cabinet or something, because I've seen so many spaces where people don't know where to put things. And I'm looking at a bunch of bare walls where, you could just get like a piece of wood from the hardware store and a couple of brackets and put up some shelves, and like, you're off to the races. Get some like, if you have some like old shoe boxes lying around or whatever, or then maybe it is time to go, purchase a couple things, or go to IKEA and get some inexpensive boxes or whatever, Target, whatever, so just make use of the wall space, the vertical space, and also know that you just don't have to store things like where they're supposed to go. Like I used to store a bunch of stuff in my kitchen that was like creative stuff that you'd be like, why is this in the kitchen? But it didn't matter because I made a choice about it. Okay, good. I'm so glad it's helpful. I can see we're having stuff in one space and bringing it to the space we're creating. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Cool.
And I love the tip about the blank walls. Thank you, Faye.
Yeah, and hooks too.
Hooks.
Oh my gosh. Hooks.
A hook.
Man hooks are amazing.
Wow, we're ending with some good ones.
Good.
Before we close, I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about your course. Is it full? Is it open? Is there going to be another one?
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. So if people want to be on the list, know more about that, just go to neworderlove.com and pop in your email. And I will probably open up registration again this summer at some point, maybe at the end of the summer. And it's really just it's in some ways, it's the like video version of the book. It's definitely based on the book and structured in a very similar way. Plus it has, for a lot of people, it's helpful to watch a video or be able to, I've had students say, I didn't even need to watch the video. I just had you playing on my phone when I wasn't looking and I was driving, and it works, that way too. You can also speed up the video so it can work sort of as a podcast if you're like, I'm not going to sit down and read a book. So in a lot of ways, more visual as well. And then I've added a couple new things to it as well. So it's for everyone. And then there is some stuff in there that's specific to creativity as well, but it's definitely for everyone.
I think that, yeah, I know I would benefit from a course. Just having you speaking to me in the background is definitely a great, addition to the book. It's that extra push. I know that some of us need, definitely myself. I want to thank you so much for offering up your time to be here and share your knowledge with us. So many good takeaways.
I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to just mention to everyone that though this is a free event and our events are pretty much free, we do have a COVID relief fund. We are collecting donations for teachers, yoga teachers that have been out of work. A lot of yoga studios have closed this year due to regulations around COVID safety. The PayPal is in the chat. So basically you help fund those teachers to create videos, and they create yoga video content, which we then put up for you. So it's a win-win because you get free yoga classes and you help a teacher. And then just look out for more SOULFest events and a big announcement about some more festivals coming up in the fall. Excited about that. Thank you, Faye.
Thank you so much. Donate to the COVID Relief Fund.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you all.